Welcome back. Good to see everyone back. So this is part 2, basically. I'm going to be doing a few more videos like this, and that's really talking about my journey, looking at really how I kind of, my first episode, the one before this, which we'll put up on the screen, was really talking about, how I went through my entrepreneurial journey and kind of got to where I am today. And that's really kind of talking about, going through business, but also looking at how you can kind of leverage and look into different asset classes and what was the sort of journey with me so far, and how I, kind of got to doing what I'm doing now. So just to kind of follow on with that, it was really, the first episode was kind of talking about, like I said, the personal journey, going from setting up a business to then looking at different asset classes to basically invest in. And looking at not just running businesses, but looking at how you can take money from businesses to then buy asset classes, basically, or buy assets for your business or for your investment portfolio. And what I discovered was really, which was really interesting for me on my journey, was looking at, how I've sort of come from working within a business environment, and then looking at how you can take that money and actually invest the money into real estate, maybe stocks and shares, also gold, silver, any sort of precious metals, but also then looking at how you can utilize Bitcoin as well. And this channel is all about, going permissionless and discussing how you can use Bitcoin within a business. And when I create this channel, it was really to kind of talk about the needs of businesses. Most, or if not many, businesses will invest into real estate as a part of their portfolio. And that's a common ground for any business to say, right, we've got surplus cash. What are we going to do with this surplus cash at the end of the year? It may well be they have a small amount of cash that they want to invest, or they have a mid-flow amount, or potentially a large amount of cash, whatever that may be. The need is there for a business to utilize the cash effectively. And I guess with me, it was going back in 2020, it was all about property for me. I really wanted to get more into property. I wanted to leverage what I've already got in the portfolio, but also look at different areas of property, and looking at different areas of how you can get a property. And you do a BRR strategy, which is a buy, refurbish, and refinance. Take the cash out and do other things. And it's really interesting to know some of the stuff that I've learned along the way is actually looking at what you can do with that particular strategy. And I'm not going to talk about every single strategy here that I've learned, but it's just interesting stuff that I've learned along the way that you can actually utilize a particular asset class like real estate. Take that money when you've recycled the money out of the property that you've done up, for example. You may have done a property up. It might be a commercial property, it might be a residential property. But once you've done that property up, let's say you bought it and it was in a dilapidated state, you do it up, you do the kitchen, you do the plastering, full electrics, etc., and you make that property worth more money, right? So it's not rocket science, but a lot of people don't understand is once you take that money, or when you refinance that property, you can take that money out tax-free and do whatever you want with it, within theory. And then that can make you, or makes the business grow even bigger. You can then utilize that as leverage to then go and buy more properties, or in my case is to look at buying more Bitcoin. And the reason I did that was because there's a few reasons. And for those people that know Michael Saylor, he was probably one of the biggest advocates for me. And that was looking at what he was doing and then figuring out, can I do that within my businesses? And the answer was, yes, you can. And it was really looking at how you can buy an asset class, a new asset class, which in the case of Bitcoin was Bitcoin. I got into my Bitcoin journey, I think it was late 2019, 2020. And that was essentially, I went down a rabbit hole. Someone told me about Bitcoin. I studied it, like with anything with technology, I get kind of attracted by it. And it was really about the blockchain technology behind it, which kind of got me inspired. It was looking at blockchain and how that can solve a lot of problems within business, and what is Bitcoin fundamentally. And when I looked at what Bitcoin was in a really sort of basic way, for me, it was looking at, how do you class it as a similar asset class that's already out there? Because most people's mindset of Bitcoin or crypto overall, but we're not comparing crypto to Bitcoin here. I'm just talking about Bitcoin. But with Bitcoin, it's slightly different. You know, the way I see it as, and what Michael Saylor always shouts about, and that is looking at how that asset class is very scarce. So if you look at Bitcoin, there's only 21 million coins available in the whole network. Once those coins are sewed up or minted, they're all gone. So how can you utilize that, you know, as a strong sort of asset class within your portfolio? And the real reason behind that is actually looking at how you can, leverage that essentially and utilize the power of that physical asset, right? So when you look at the 21 million coins, there's only so many people that are actually going to be buying Bitcoin, right? We started Bitcoin started 2009, and it had, digital money, and it was built on blockchain technology, which is a decentralized ledger essentially. But what Bitcoin can do successfully is it can trade as a monetary value. It can be utilized as kind of like real estate to a degree because it's a property. And I think once you get that in your mind, you compare Bitcoin to property or real estate, then the penny kind of drops. You go, hold a minute, there's 21 million coins. And I'm going to use Michael Saylor's analogy here, and that is you compare it to potentially buying property in Miami Beach. On the front of the beach, it's worth a lot of money. It's a great location, and there's a scarce amount of properties available within that particular beachfront area. And using Miami Beach as the analogy there. The same goes for Bitcoin, right? You imagine Bitcoin like this is your network, and there's 21 million coins within that network. Once they've gone, you've then created more of a scarce environment for that asset class. And the same goes for gold. But the only reason I don't particularly like gold is because gold can be mined continuously, right? I'm not degrading gold. Gold's got a good use case. It can be used for jewelry. It can be stored in vaults. But what's the real true value behind gold compared to Bitcoin? And there's so many use cases with Bitcoin. And the fact developers are now building even further onto the Bitcoin layer and using things called ordinals, but I won't go into details on what they are, but have a Google. It's interesting to find out. Bitcoin's getting bigger. It's got a big network effect now. You've got more and more people that have joined the network. So it's becoming an asset class that's becoming, one, valuable. I mean, as of today, it's around £47,000. And we've had so many institutions that have piled in. So it's an asset class that is not going anywhere. It's got the network effect of people joining it. So what I'm talking about here is my journey that I spoke about on the episode 1, which is the one before this video, and this is episode 2. And that is, why buy into Bitcoin, as a business? So I've got a few businesses, and what I've done is I dollar cost average DCA, which is each month I buy a small piece of Bitcoin, and then if my businesses do well, then basically I'll take that money out of that business, I'll put it into Bitcoin basically, and buy Bitcoin and add it to the business transactions or the exchange that I buy it through. But I buy it through a business, and then it will sit on the balance sheet. And this is what's interesting, where only a few companies are doing this, and obviously MicroStrategy being one of them, but it's becoming more and more prevalent that Bitcoin is a good flight to safety mechanism. It's now proven that Bitcoin every 4 years goes up, post the halving, which is kind of where we are now. The halving was in April 2024 this year. And normally around sort of October, November time is what Raoul Pol classes as the banana zone, which is where it goes up, extremely, fast and rapidly and quite high. So what businesses are now doing, and then I had a podcast not too long ago, and please look back to that, a guy called Leon Wankum, absolutely phenomenal character. Big shout to you, Leon, for coming on the show. Appreciate that. What Leon said, which is really interesting, is he works in property development, and property developers, his particular company, are now using Bitcoin to basically beat, what's the best way to kind of explain this? They're basically beating the system. Rather than having a debt, they'll take out a debt to finance a project, and then they can have some extra surplus funds. And what they'll do is they'll then put those funds into a Bitcoin holding with a view, it could be over 1 or 4 years or whatever, that with a view of that money that's sitting there, rather than just sitting in a bank and collecting dust and maybe a 2% return or 3% if you're lucky, that it goes into the Bitcoin business account. That then gives them leverage, because that Bitcoin account is then going to be going up. We're now at a point where it's a proven concept, Bitcoin. And when it's a proven concept, then you can start to take those risks within a business and actually say to yourself, I can utilize Bitcoin to defend my business and beat inflation. And I think this is what this is about, is what I've learned is, by putting Bitcoin on your business balance sheet, actually it's a hedge against inflation. And it creates better purchasing power for the business, but also make more money in the long run as well. So a lot of businesses, what they'll do is they'll just keep surplus cash on the balance sheet. They might invest in real estate. They might invest in a stocks and shares wrapper potentially. But there's different entrances to the market with Bitcoin for a business anyway, and there is for a personal or domestic access, if you like. If you're just a person buying Bitcoin, you can just go through an exchange. But with a business, you've got to set up a business trading account, and that's difficult to get set up. But once you can get that set up, if you're a reputable business, it shouldn't be a problem. You can get your compliance team to do that. But what's interesting is, there are different variations of entrances to the market with Bitcoin. And I think it's worth knowing that, because if you look at businesses that are adopting to it, and you look at Michael Saylor with MicroStrategy, and their model is really, really exciting, because they've taken on Bitcoin onto the balance sheet. They've seen that model work extremely well. And they're now leveraging debt, cheap debt, to buy Bitcoin, which then in turn pushes up MicroStrategy's share price, which I think is an interesting concept. And it's kind of what I'm starting to do within our businesses, is to leverage from the business, take those cash funds and put it into Bitcoin. But once you've got the Bitcoin account set up, like I mentioned, the exchange, there's different ways of then holding that Bitcoin. So someone's got to custody it. Now, this is where it gets interesting, is for the businesses that don't know this, is you can either custody on the exchange, which if that exchange goes pop or into liquidation, you potentially lose your keys. You lose your coins. Whereas the other options is cold wallet storage. And a company might want to, you might be an SMB, and you might want to say, do you know what, I want to take cash out of the business, set up an account on an exchange, but I don't actually want the hassle of storing the Bitcoin myself. I don't want to store it on an exchange. I don't want to do cold storage, which is storing it offline and having your own seed phrase generated by a very small cold wallet that's been created with Ledger or Trezor or one of these companies. Or the other option is for bigger companies, I say bigger companies, even probably SMB markets, we're certainly looking at it, and that is looking at how you can use a new storage facility called multi-sig storage. And what that allows you to do as a company is basically, very simply, is split your seed phrase across a multitude of custodians. And those custodians will basically have let's say your seed phrase is 24 words. The 24 words will be split, but between those three parties. So you've got fault tolerance across three networks, effectively, that can't talk to each other. So it's a clever way of looking at multi-sig. And if you haven't looked at it or heard of it yet, have a look at it. So I think it's interesting. You've got that way of entrance to market for a business, but you've also now got the spot ETF. So you've got BlackRock, you've got Fidelity, all the sort of mainframe finance houses now are looking at, or have actually got a facility set up where you can buy a spot ETF. And what that is, it's an ETF fund, exchange traded fund, where you can buy through your business Bitcoin, but without all the hassle. Now, for me, I don't like that, because it's owned under the corporate world still. What I like about self-custody of Bitcoin specifically for a business is you're taking it away from the exchange and you've got it in your own property. You've got full custodial security over that asset class. And that brings you back again, when you look at real estate, you think, well, actually, this is quite interesting because real estate, one, I've got maintenance on there. And I'm a big real estate investor. I love it still. You've got to look at different models. But what real estate can't do is you can't break it down. You can't break it down. It's not, fractionalized asset, right? You want to sell it, you've got to take 3 months to 6 months maybe to sell it. You've got maintenance, you've got insurance, you've got all sorts of problems. You've got tenants, you've got voids. If you're doing that type of business, it could be a tenancy AST arrangement you've got with your tenant. If that tenant decides to not pay you one day, what are you going to do? You've got to go through the court systems, and property is becoming more and more difficult under the Labour government in the UK. So it's worth looking at those points. And when you look at those areas of concerns within real estate, you go, hold on a minute. Now you start to see the true value of Bitcoin. I can take it across the world if I need to. I don't need to melt it down or break it down like property, even though you wouldn't break down a real estate property because it's built, it's there. But you can't fractionalize it. You can on Bitcoin. Bitcoin can be broken down into pieces, into Satoshis. You don't have to own one Bitcoin. But I always hammer on this channel about, we try to educate people to try and say, look, Bitcoin is an alternative asset class out there. Look at it. It doesn't have to be for your business. It can be for personal reasons, or it can be to boost your P&L for your business and give you a better asset class to gamble on for inflation. So wherever you are within your business journey, it's just worth knowing those points. So yeah, we talked about, obviously you've got a spot ETF you can buy through for your business. You can buy it through an exchange and host it on the exchange, or you can just keep it on cold storage, but also multi-sig storage as well. So there's a few options out there on which option would be preferable for your business. So have a look at those points. And also, if most importantly, if you like this content, please like, share, subscribe, and follow the channel. It all helps. We're across all the channels. We're on TikTok, we're on Facebook, Instagram, and obviously YouTube as well. So I hope that bit of information about Bitcoin, why businesses particularly need to buy Bitcoin. One area I didn't mention on actually, which I'd like to circle back on, is actually, what companies are now doing with Bitcoin is leveraging as well, which I'm quite new to this, but I'm still looking at this. There's companies open up in America and they're given the facility of leveraging on your Bitcoin. So they'll take your loan against your Bitcoin. So say, for example, you have 10, 15 Bitcoins, then you can start to leverage against that and take a loan out with the ideation of actually Bitcoin is going to go up. So you can then start to, like in real estate, you can then remortgage, for want of a better word, taking that debt out and making it tax-free, right? So rather than just taking your money out of the system, out of Bitcoin, and then pay tax on it, what people are now doing in America and other areas around the world is leveraging against that Bitcoin. So using that as a custodial entity, leverage against the Bitcoin, and then take a debt out against that, which is tax-free, and then you can reinvest that into other areas if you need to, or whatever you want. But obviously, I'm not giving you tax advice here. This is just what's happening within certain areas around the world that I've heard of. So it's worth looking at that as well. And it's worth just getting that structure right. So when you do buy your Bitcoin, what are you going to do with it on the balance sheet? Are you just going to stick and hold? Are you going to hodl? Or are you going to start to leverage that in the future? And like I said, there are companies coming out at the moment that do offer that facility where you can leverage Bitcoin, like real estate. And when I say like real estate, I'm talking about, you do a property up in real estate, you then refinance with a mortgage, take that extra money out and do something else, right? That money is tax-free. The same applies with Bitcoin. But obviously, wherever you are in the world, do consult your accountants and discuss what the local policies are with that. As always, this isn't financial education. This is all about teaching you about how to use Bitcoin within your business and how it can best benefit you within a business as well. So just hopefully a few good points to kind of digest, take on board. Again, please like, share, comment. Any sort of information is good to get feedback on these. And if there's anything that I haven't spoken about, or you've got any questions or concerns or comments on any of the content that I've put out today, do leave a comment below, and I'll come back to you straight away. But most importantly, I hope that was good information, and we'll catch up soon. Thanks, guys. Have a good day.